Wait, are we on? Are we on? Are we live? Yeah, awesome. Welcome everyone to Sing for Hope. My name is Nathan Lucrezio. I have been away for a little bit, but I'm so happy to be back. Um, I have been like traveling the country, doing things, seeing my friends, and it's been lovely, obviously being safe, but it's been lovely to see people and to reconnect. But I'm so happy to be back here with y'all. We have someone very special. I'm very excited because normally, whenever we do these things, it's like a musical theater or a Broadway performer that I've known or somebody that like we'll just sit and we'll just like talk forever. It's like coffee and singing. But today we're going to hear from a musical theater artist who does classical music. He plays some instruments, and it's going to be a lovely afternoon. And I'm just so happy that you're here to spend it with us. A couple things. Sing for Hope has been around since 2006. They started putting pianos out in the city, and people would go and they would play them, and they would meet, strangers, and they would meet friends, and it was just such a wonderful way to unify people together around music. And how do you do that? Around a piano. And then they started this program this past year for the pandemic. And, I'm so happy that we have this because of what's going on. We're happy things are reopening, but we're sort of still in this weird territory. So we're going to be here forever. And we run this whole program based on donations. So whatever you want to give to us, we will gladly take. It keeps us going and it keeps the arts alive. All right, I'm going to stop talking. Will, how are you?
Hi Nathan. Hi. Thanks so much for having me today. It's so lovely to like invite all of you into my living room, into my office.
I know. I just was like looking at your setup and sort of I love the interior design of it. And I didn't get to say that to you, but I really like it. But anyways, that aside, this is kind of a fun peek into people's lives and how where they do their work. What are you going to be doing for us today?
Great. Today's performance is a poetry and music pairing. Um, all of the poems today are going to be poems by Mary Oliver. I'll talk a little bit more about where they come from. But I'm pairing a piece of poetry which I will read with some classical music, a little bit of piano, a little viola, but much like a chocolate and wine pairing, this is poetry and music.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to hear this and just to relax and let this wash over me. If you're at home, put up that speaker. Make sure that you're listening to us. If you want to engage, we would love for you to write some comments. And we have a Sing for Hope friend here that if you have any technical difficulties, they can help you as well. But thank you for coming on our stream. Here we go. Will Curry, take it away.
Amazing. And Nathan, again, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for all of you for being here. Um, Again, this is a music and poetry pairing. So I'll tell you a little bit about each piece that I'm going to play, and then I will read some Mary Oliver to put that along with it. The first piece on the program is a piano work that I believe will be very familiar to most of you. It is the C Major Prelude from by J.S. Bach, and I am pairing it with a piece titled Morning Poem. All of the poetry today comes from a single collection of Mary Oliver's work. It is all from her collection titled Dream Work. Every morning, the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again, and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black cloth, on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all you can do to keep on trudging, there is still somewhere, deep within you, a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning, whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray. Up next is a composer that I have really gotten to love in the past year. This is a piece by Florence Price. Florence Price was an African American female composer living in New Orleans, sort of the late 1800s, early 1900s. And she wrote a lot of music for piano, for voice, violin, but she also has some large scale orchestral works, pieces for full orchestra, several piano concertos, violin concertos. And at the beginning of her career, started writing music that was very European centric. And as she grew as a composer, began to marry sort of the world of German Romanticism, which was very popular in the concert halls of America in that time, with African American folk music, spirituals. And her music really, as she began to grow, really marries the two of those traditions beautifully. So this is her Adoration, originally written for organ, has been rearranged for many instruments because, as you will hear, the melody is beautiful. I will be playing this on viola and pairing it with trilliums. Every spring, among the ambiguities of childhood, the hillsides grew white with wild trilliums. I believed in the world. Oh, I wanted to be easy in the peopled kingdoms, to take my place there, but there was no home that I could find shaped like me. So I entered through the tender buds, I crossed the cold creek, my backbone and my thin white shoulders unfolding and stretching. From the time of the snowmelt, when the creek roared and the mud slid and the seeds cracked, I listened to the earth talk, the root wrangle, the arguments of energy, the dreams lying just under the surface. Then, rising, becoming at the last moment flaring and luminous. The patient parable of every spring and hillside, year after difficult year. The next piece is actually written by a composer who I had gotten to know a few years ago. He lived in Brooklyn, so a New York local. And this is a work by Andrew Violette. Uh, about 5 or 6 years ago, Andrew was diagnosed with a pretty severe form of stomach cancer and was only given a few months to live. And in those few months, he decided that he wanted to record as much of the music that he had written as possible. So I came to know him as a member of the chamber group that he had hired to record his music. He had written a large body of work for string quartet, string quintet, sextet, septet, octet. I mean, if it was any combination of strings, he had written for it. He was also a prominent organist at one of the large churches in Brooklyn. And so his music has quite a rich harmonic language. Andrew ended up living many years beyond the original diagnosis, but he passed away about 6 months ago. And in preparing another program that I did recently, I came across his sonata for solo violin. And the sonata originally had been recorded by a very good friend of mine who had played violin for all of the other recordings we had made for Andrew. And when I came across this, I thought how fitting to be able to sort of honor Andrew and celebrate his life and celebrate, the great spirit of New York as well. So this is the aria. It's the first movement of his sonata for solo violin that I'm going to play on viola. It actually fits really, really well on the viola. So I'm pairing that with Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for hundreds of miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. The next piece is one that I have never gotten to perform live. It's not complicated. It's very simple. It's a piece that I've loved for almost 10 years now. And I'm excited to get to share it with you in this setting. I came across this composer's work, again, about 10 years ago, of all things, through an episode of So You Think You Can Dance. He had a piece written for solo violin that was very popular at the time, titled 3326, and it was frequently chosen by dance companies as a work that they would choreograph, and it was one of the dances that episode was choreographed to that, and I don't remember anything about the episode except for the fact that I remember thinking, I have to find out more about this composer. So this is a work by Olafur Arnalds, who is an Icelandic composer about my age, and a lot of his music would be considered sort of contemporary classical, maybe verging on easy listening, but it's very simple yet colorful. He writes a lot for strings, piano, and this is a piece titled Tomorrow's Song. It's from his collection titled Living Room Songs. And these pieces, this album in particular, is one that I would listen to coming home on the subway when I was playing shows. I spent a long time playing Les Mis, both on tour and here in New York on Broadway. And for those who know Les Mis, it is an intense 3 hours of music, and it requires a lot from the orchestra. So at the end of the evening, when I would feel particularly spent, I would pop Olafur Arnalds into my headphones and listen to that on my subway ride home. So this piece, for me, really embodies that sort of late night New York feeling when you've really given everything to your day. And I'm excited to share it with you today. Particularly excited to pair it as well with some Mary Oliver. This is her poem, Starfish. In the sea rocks, in the stone pockets under the tide's lip, in water dense as blindness, they slid like sponges, like too many thumbs. I knew this, and what I wanted was to draw my hands back from the water. What I wanted was to be willing to be afraid. But I stayed there. I crouched on the stone wall while the sea poured its harsh song through the sluices, while I waited for the gritty lightning of their touch, while I stared down through the tides leaving where sometimes I could see them, their stubborn flesh lounging on my knuckles. What good does it do to lie all day in the sun, loving what is easy? It never grew easy, but at last I grew peaceful. All summer my fear diminished as they bloomed through the water like flowers, like flecks of an uncertain dream, while I lay on the rocks, reaching into the darkness, learning, little by little, to love our only world. one of the weird and surprising joys of making music in this sort of online space that we've discovered throughout the past year is that I get an opportunity to welcome you, the audience, into my home, into my in this case, into my office space, into my music studio. It's like a sort of tiny desk concert of sorts. And as you'll see in the background, there's some remnants of a concert series that I'm in the middle of doing, also live streamed out of my apartment, that is sort of summer beach themed. Don't worry, I did take out the inflatable pool toys for this program. I didn't feel like it was fitting for the mood. But you will see remnants of that throughout my office and shelves. And if you're interested in that, you can check out my website, www.willcurrymusic, for more information on those programs. But I do a variety of live stream performances from my home, and it's been an interesting joy inviting you, the audience, into my space. Another wonderful joy of the past year is I've gotten to explore not only the music of Florence Price, but also the music of Samuel Coleridge Taylor. Samuel Coleridge Taylor was an Afro-British composer living in the 1800s, splitting his time between London and Africa. And much like Florence Price, was writing a lot of music for strings and piano, voice, full orchestra, and he has a suite for violin and piano, which is 4 movements, and I've arranged all of them for viola as well. And the second movement really has come out to me as the real standout. I've performed this probably on every program I've given because I love it so much. And as you will hear, the melody is stunning. It is beautiful. So this is the second movement, the cavatina, from Samuel Coleridge Taylor's suite for, in this case, viola and piano. And I'm pairing this with a small excerpt from Mary Oliver's One or Two Things. The butterfly's loping flight carries it through the country of the leaves delicately, and well enough to get it where it wants to go, wherever that is, stopping here and there to fuzzle the damp throats of flowers and the black mud. Up and down it swings, frenzied and aimless. And sometimes, for long, delicious moments, it is perfectly lazy, riding motionless in the breeze on the soft stalk of some ordinary flower. For those who don't know, I know it looks an awful lot like the violin, but probably said it too quickly. I'm playing most of the pieces today on the viola, and again, which those who don't know sort of is the halfway point between the violin and the cello. Sort of a large, darker violin, or smaller cello, depending on how you want to color the sound. Next might be a piece that sounds familiar to many of you, though I doubt you've heard it played on viola, is the meditation from Massanese opera Tais. This is a famous violin solo that comes midway through the opera, and it is a scene where the main character is in a church praying and stops singing, and the violin does all of the musical heavy lifting. Again, I'm sure it will sound familiar to many of you, though you've likely heard it on violin, which it was originally written for. And paired with marsh hawks. In the morning, they glide just above the rough plush of the marshlands, as though on leashes, long-tailed and with yard-wide wings tipped upward like dark V's. Then they suddenly fall in response to their wish, which is always the same, to succeed again and again. What they eat is neither fruit nor grain. What they cry out is sharper than a sharp word. At night, they don't exist except in our dreams, where they fly like mad things, unleashed and endlessly hungry. But in the day, they are always there, gliding. And when they descend to the marsh, they are swift, and then so quiet they could be anything. A rock, an uprise of earth, a scrap of fallen tree, a patch of flowers, casting their whirling shadow. Now, as a violist, I don't typically like to send my audiences away with something flashy. Tend to choose a piece that is a bit more introverted to show off sort of the beautiful tonal qualities of the viola. So this is the final piece on the program. It is Edward Elgar's Salut d'Amour, paired with one of my favorites from this set of poems by Mary Oliver, The Sunflowers. Come with me into the field of sunflowers. Their faces are burnished disks. Their dry spines creak like ship masts. Their green leaves, so heavy and many, fill all day with the sticky sugars of the sun. Come with me to visit the sunflowers. They are shy, but want to be friends. They have wonderful stories of when they were young, the important weather, the wandering crows. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. Their bright faces, which follow the sun, will listen, and all those rows of seeds, each one a new life, hope for a deeper acquaintance. Each of them, though it stands in a crowd of many, like a separate universe, is lonely. The long work of turning their lives into a celebration is not easy. Come, and let us talk with those modest faces, the simple garments of leaves, the coarse roots in the earth so uprightly burning.
Amazing. Everybody, please give it up for Will Curry. Will, thank you so much for sharing your just so many different aspects of music and poetry, and it's really inspiring. Where can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, thank you, Nathan, for your kind words. I appreciate that. Let's see, my website, www.willcurrymusic.com, has plenty of information there, both about current programs and past programs, and some of the teaching that I do. Also, if you're social media savvy, my Instagram is fairly active. I do post some performance information there as well, and that is at WJ Curry. Curry, like the food. So those are probably the two easiest places to connect with me.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to be connecting with you. I really enjoyed this. I'm sure that our paths will cross again. Um, and do you have any other exciting things that you're working on that you want to tell us about? Or are you anything secret?
Nothing secret at the moment. I have this. I'm in the middle of doing a an online concert series called Beat the Heat. It's a light, fun summer music series. We just had our first one last week. The next concert is a week from tomorrow. All that information is on my website. So the one in a week is with a great pianist friend of mine. I have a viola duet one coming up and a duet with a bassoon player coming up in a month. So that whole series is in the midst of happening. So if you're interested, please check that out. Otherwise, just getting ready to start teaching in the fall, as school returns.
Amazing. Well, we have a lot of awesome things going on. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us and listening to this. Thank you, Will, for sharing your gift of music. So, everyone, I'm Nathan Lucrezio. I will be your host tomorrow for the next set of concerts. I also teach a Broadway movement class on Friday mornings. We have a lot going on, so make sure that you check the calendar that is on singforhope.org/calendar. There's so many things happening. Also, if you want to connect to us, we love that. This is donation based, so anything you give goes right back into this program. And I just want to once again say thank you, and we're going to sign off, and we will see you tomorrow at the next concert. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Will. Have a good rest of your day.